Alright, hello everyone, welcome back to the second installation in my tutorials. Today we will be going through the action tray. Tomorrow we'll be going through the flow control, but let's focus on action for now. So for the first block we have here is the medium motor. If we pull it up, here, there it is. So now we can see that we have a lot of different buttons here. So if we start at the top, we can see the port. So this is actually the port on the EV3 which the software will communicate to. So if your medium motor is connected to port B, you can change that to port B and you can see that it's changed right over here. This is very important that you get this right so that it will actually communicate to the correct port and make sure it's going to the right motor. Next, on the bottom left, you can see the mode. Here you can see it can be off, on for seconds, on for degrees, and on for rotations. If we start with off, we can see that it starts with brake at end, and that's true. Brake at end basically means that the motor will supply a reverse torque force on the way that it's moving currently so that it can actually stop it almost immediately. If you set this to true, then that will happen. If you set this to false, it will coast, which means that there will be no force added and it will be allowed to spin as long as the inertia will pull it. Next, you have on. Here you see the power. Power is basically the speed or the torque that you're supplying the motor with. And here we can see it's set to 50. If we set it higher, then it will be more power. If you set it lower, then it will be no power. Also, you can move it to the negatives to make it rotate the other way. And this is how you modulate clockwise versus counterclockwise. Next, you have on for seconds. Basically the same thing here with the power and the brake at end, except now we have seconds, a timer right here. We can change this time to any time we want. Say I want it to go for 5 seconds. I type 5 and hit enter. There we go, now it's 5. So the motor will run at 0 power for 5 seconds and then it will go to the next one. So that means it just won't spin at all. If I set this to like 57 power, then it will move at 57 power clockwise for 5 seconds. And then after it's done, it will brake at the end. So if I want that to just coast, I can hit that and now it will coast. Basically the same thing here for degrees, except it's the degrees of the motor here. So if I wanted to rotate 180 degrees, I can just type that 180 here and hit enter. So now you can see this visual also changes to 180 degrees. And the power is the same and the brake at end is still the same. Next we have on for rotations. Same exact thing here except it's for rotations, and this is rotations of the actual motor itself. So if I set it for 5 rotations, it will rotate 5 times and then it will go to the next block. That should be it for the medium motor. We can delete that and go on to the next one, to the large motor. So the main difference between the medium and large motor is that the large motor is usually used to move your entire robot, while the medium motor is usually used to move small attachments or some sort of mechanisms that move with your program. The large motor has a lot more power and a lot more torque, and the medium motor is much more like fine-tuned, and you can do a lot of specific tasks with this. But I would definitely recommend using the large motor to move your robot and the medium motor to move attachments on your robot. This is basically the same exact thing here, except make sure you change the port to whatever port the large motor is on now. This only controls one of them, by the way, at a time. So say it's on port C, I set that to port C, and all of these settings here should be the exact same as the medium motor. As you can see here, they're all the exact same settings. Alright, next we go to move steering. This is one of the more important ones, as now you have 2 ports that it talks to. One port on the left, which will be considered the left port, and the right port. So say mine is on A and D. There we go. So now I can actually control 2 large motors at the same time. You also have a new mode here. It's called steering. So you can actually change the way it's turning. If you turn it to the negative numbers or to the left, the robot will turn left. As you can see by the picture here, you can see that the further it goes, the harsher the turn will be. And same thing to the right, it will go to the right at that number. We also have power and rotations because we have it on rotations. Let's set it to off. We see that the only option we have is brake at the end, just like the medium motor. or we could set it to on. Here we have the steering again, where we can left and right, and we have power, which is the same thing as earlier. Next we go to seconds. We have steering, power, and time now. We can change this to 5 seconds. Say I want it to turn at 71 with 50 power for 5 seconds and then brake at the end. I would have this configuration, and after that it will move to the next block. Same thing here for degrees, except it's in degrees, of course. And let's say I wanted to turn half a rotation. Oops. So I wanted to turn half a rotation, just like that, 180 degrees. This will actually be the rotation of the motors itself, not the turn. Make sure you know that, so that the motors will turn 180 degrees, but the robot may not move anything more than like 45, depending on how big and depending on how you've made your robot. This is mostly the steering. This is where all the steering is actually, and this is just the rotation of the motors itself. Next we have rotations. This will count the number of rotations that the motors go for. If you change that to 5 or any number that you want, it will rotate for that many rotations, and then it will go to the next block. I believe that is all for move steering. We can move on to move tank. Here we have move tank. This is very similar to move steering, as you can control two ports at the same time here. Let's change them back to A and D. And if we have it on the off setting, we have the same setting here, brake at end. We know that what that is already. Say we go to on. Here is where the difference is. So move tank can actually individually control the power which is given to each motor at the same time. So say I want to turn the left motor to 0 power and have the right motor spin at 50 power. This will actually cause the robot to spin while pivoting on the left motor. This is the big difference between move tank and move steering. The thing with move steering is that it will actually move while it's turning. So it's like a car. When a car turns, the entire body is also moving with it. But here, it will actually rotate on one of the wheels. It will rotate as if one of the wheels were stuck into the ground. So this is very useful if you're in a tight situation and you need to make very tight turns and you don't have a lot of room to move around in. This is very useful. Also, you can go on for seconds. Here we have the same left power, right power, and time. Same thing here if we want to set the time, and we have brake at the end. Next we have degrees. Same exact thing here, left power, right power, and the rotation of both of the motors there. And brake at the end is true. Then we can have rotations. Same exact thing. It will count the number of rotations, and if it passes this number of rotations, it will go on to the next block. That should be all there. Next we can go on to display. This will actually display something on the screen itself of the EV3. So up top you see file name instead of port here. If I click on that, you'll see this. And I can actually click on the LEGO image files and it will open up this entire library for me. These are pre-installed files that you get from LEGO themselves. And here we go. We have a lot of different settings here. Say I want to go to crazy one. It will actually display this on my screen itself. Say I want that, I like that. Here we can see clear screen setting. So if I click on this, then that means after this is done, it will actually clear the screen back to empty. Or I can also have X and Y offsets here. So if I move it a little bit to the right, I can move it right to the right there. Or I can move it to the left if I want to, up or down with the Y setting here. I can also go over to text. This is one of the more important ones and more useful ones. If I go to text and then pixels here, you can see this entire setting here. Up top, you'll see the text Mindstorms. If I click on that, you can name this whatever you want. Say I want to name it EV3. I can type that and it will actually display EV3 on my display. But one of the more important ones is wired. If I click on this, it will actually allow me to input anything I want into this text box. So say I go to one of the sensors over here, down here. Let's go, I say, to the ultrasonic sensor. Okay, I'll put it over here and you can see this little tab and the string of yarn comes up. If you pull on it, click and drag, then you can actually connect it right here. So what it will do is it will read the distance in centimeters from the ultrasonic sensor, and then output that as text on your display. However, if you want this to be a live refresh, then you'll need to put this in a loop, but we'll get into that later and how loops work. We'll get into all of that tomorrow. So we have the same setting here, clear screen. So after this is done, it will clear the screen if I set it to true or false, and then it will persist. And I can also have the X and Y offsets like we did earlier. And then we have the color. I can set it to white or black. Here you can see the text font size if I want it small or large. I like it at large, so I will leave it there. You also have shapes. If you want to show any sort of shapes on your screen here, you can see all of these settings for here. So you have x1, y1, and then x2, y2. These are basically coordinates of each point on the line. So one of the endpoints would be this x and y coordinate, and the other would be these two x and y coordinates. You can see all of the other things, all of the other settings here, whichever one you would like. If you want to fill it, if you have like a rectangle or a circle, you can also fill them with color. So say I want to fill it with black completely, you can change the radius and you can change the x and y offsets here. Same thing with a rectangle. You'll see x, y offsets, and you can actually change the width and the height also with the fill and the color. Next, we also have our image and reset screen. So if you have anything displayed already, then it will reset the screen and it will go back to normal. Alright, that is all for the display settings. We can delete that. Again, bring up the sound settings. Alright, this is very similar to the display settings, as you can play any sound that you want. So if I go to LEGO sound files, you see all of these different sounds and files that LEGO has automatically downloaded for you. So say I want this sound, you can hear that dog barking. Say I like that, I'll put that up here and it will be the dog bark 1 file. And you can change the volume. So if you want it to be quiet or if you want it to be loud, you can change that right there. And you can also change the play type. So here, the first one, it will wait for the file to complete and then it will move on to the next file or to the next block. Or you can also just play it once, which means that it will play it once and then it will leave. And you can also repeat, which will basically force it to go on forever until you provide an exit statement. Next, you have stop. So if you have a previous sound going on, you can stop that with this block right here. You can also play a tone. This will modulate the frequency of the actual sound itself. If you know music or if you know anything about the lettering system, you know what these letters mean. But if you don't, that's perfectly fine. All you have to know is that this number, if it's a high number, then the pitch will also be high, and if it's a low number, then the pitch will be low. Here you have duration. This will go on for seconds. So if I want it to go on for 2 seconds, I can click that and it will play for 2 seconds. You have the same volume control here and the same play types here. If you want to go to play note, you can click on this and you will see this pop up, and this is an entire piano that you can click on any note and it will play that note. Pretty useful. And you have the same duration and volume and play type counters there. That is basically it for the sound settings. Next, you have brick light status controls here. So here you can set it off and it will turn all of the lights off on your brick status, which are the lights around the buttons. You can set to on, and here you can change the actual color between red, orange, and green, and you can choose which color you want. Also, you can change the pulsing if you want it to pulse, or if you don't want it to pulse and have it be a solid light, you can change that there too. You can also reset to set it back to the normal colors. This is pretty useful if you want to organize your files based on color, and it's a good indicator to see what the robot is doing. So if you say go straight, and then set this yellow color, and then let's say I want to turn right here, and then set another color and set it to green, I will know when everything is happening. So it will complete the straight, and then it will change the brick status light to orange, and then it will turn and then it will change it to green. So now I can visually see what the robot is doing, and I can diagnose any problems that may occur. That is basically it for today. Those were all of the action blocks pretty exciting stuff. These are the basic blocks that you will be using almost consistently throughout your entire program. And all of the other blocks mainly just build off of these. These use all of the other blocks, and this is the foundation of your EV3 programming. Tomorrow we will be looking at flow control. We can actually put these blocks inside of these, and they can change, and you can add loops and switches, so the EV3 can actually make decisions. But yeah, that is basically it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. I'll make sure to actually enable them. Last time I didn't, and that was a mistake. It should be up now. But yep, so thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.